Hello and welcome, subscribers old and new. I'd like to take the opportunity for a brief thank you to really everybody who supports the channel, who has subscribed to the channel, or who has simply stopped by to view one or the other video. The fact that you people take your time to watch my reviews and all my talking really means a lot to me. But I'm sure you've not come to this video for a sentimental and personal address to my viewers, but for a review of
Scary monsters and super creeps.
Yes, Bowie's 14th studio release from 1980. As always, before I talk about the album, the story so far.
David Bowie was born David Robert Jones and grew up in London. Already as a child, he took a lively interest in everything creative, most of all acting, dance, and, of course, music. Throughout the 1960s, Bowie played in different small groups. This was also when he took on his less ordinary-sounding stage name. Backed up by his manager Ralph Horton, Bowie finally decided to go solo, releasing a debut album for Derham Records in 1967. The album, a cross between novelty pop, psychedelic chamber pop, and English music hall, did not perform well commercially. Neither did Bowie's next album, the more serious and also folk-tinged, originally self-titled and later renamed Space Oddity from 1969, even though the title track became his first charting single. Disappointed by the lack of success, Bowie was looking for a musical direction. This searching phase in Bowie's career included unstable lineups, changing managers, but also a friendship and musical rivalry with Mark Bolan, who soon went from whimsical psych folker to glittering glam rock star with his band T-Rex. No doubt, the glam rock scene deeply influenced Bowie, who in the early 70s released two further, rather unsuccessful, but nowadays highly acclaimed albums, the dark, guitar-heavy The Man Who Sold the World, and the more melodic, pop-oriented Hunky Dory that featured his first glam masterpiece, Life on Mars. Always a friend of theatrics and sexual ambiguity, the rise of glam rock spurred Bowie on to play with sexual identities and take on different roles from album to album. This arty approach soon set him apart from other, more commercial glam rockers, when all those vague ideas eventually formed a unified concept on Bowie's 1972 milestone release, The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, about an alien saving an apocalyptic Earth by becoming an otherworldly rock star. Now Bowie himself became a worldwide phenomenon. Subsequent albums saw Bowie abruptly abandoning the Ziggy character, who in the eyes of the fans seemed to become identical with Bowie. Aladdin Sane in 1973 became his first #1 album in the UK, sporting a more rocking but also darker version of his glam art rock. The follow-up, Diamond Dogs from 1974, was even more alienating and dystopian, also coinciding with increasing drug addiction and mental instability. After that, Bowie suddenly changed to a more US soul-influenced sound until he returned as the Thin White Duke, visibly marked by heavy drug use, and entered his most influential and experimental phase with the so-called Berlin Trilogy. 3 albums, strongly influenced by krautrock and German electronic music, ended the 1970s for Bowie and saw him move into a more abstract type of songwriting, pushing the boundaries of sound on pop and rock albums. This phase of albums, mostly recorded in Berlin, yielded the famous Low and Heroes, as well as the more world music influenced lodger. Bowie was an undisputed superstar in the UK now, getting idolized by the upcoming new romantics and new wave artists. In 1980, he was at a point in his career that felt like wrapping up an extremely creative development during the past decade. And so, the resulting album, Scary Monsters and Super Creeps, is all. Taking stock of a career as pop chameleon and also looking forward, giving an important impulse for new wave and art rock of the 1980s.
So let's find out what this album is about. It's No Game Part 1 is the first track. This is a manic, almost frantic new wave rock song. David Bowie yells and screams while Robert Fripp plays some unmelodic yet somehow catchy guitar licks. There is Japanese talking by a female, and all in all, this is a post-punky art rock song that still makes you tap your toes. It is an angry song about oppression and despair in a kind of fascist regime. Then we've got Up the Hill Backwards. This is a more relaxed cut with acoustic guitar strumming and a rather happy vocal melody. The song's lyrics are a bit cryptic. It may be about overcoming a crisis or struggling on despite rather depressing conditions or bad social conditions. Track number 3 on the album is the title track, Scary Monsters and Super Creeps. Scary Monsters and Super Creeps continues the new wave meets art rock sound of the entire album. A metallic, screeching electric guitar by King Crimson's Robert Fripp, a nervous pace and a robotic sound effect on Bowie's voice in the chorus underline the overall atmosphere of insanity, threat, and claustrophobia. Fripp throws in another warped and tuneless but exciting guitar solo to complete this song about the decay into madness and some kind of toxic relationship. During the recordings of this album, Bowie was going through a divorce, and that shines through occasionally in some of the lyrics, and I'd say this is the case here. Maybe the scary monsters also were the demons of Bowie's past that he was overcoming at the beginning of the new decade. The song is an odd choice for a single, but a fantastic title track.
Scary monsters, super creeps, keep me running scared.
And now, Ashes to Ashes. If you've never heard this song, you should get your radio fixed. It is one of Bowie's most iconic and famous singles. Bowie here delivers a pop rock song that is still quite arty without becoming too alienating for a mainstream audience. The memorable odd piano phrase sticks to your memory once you've heard it. There is a strangely funky bass, and Bowie references himself in this song by getting back to the character of Major Tom from his very first hit single, Space Oddity. But things did not turn out very well for the lonely astronaut, since Bowie tells us that Major Tom is merely a junkie now. It's a bit of a sarcastic farewell to Bowie's artistic past and also a melancholic balance sheet. Bowie signals his fans here that this really is the end of an era, and it certainly was for him, as his following ultra slick pop records would prove. The song ends accordingly with a spacey synth outro, giving Gary Newman and the New Romantics something to gush over. Also, a video clip was produced for this song, which was one of the most expensive videos of its time, and it featured members of the Blitz Club, the legendary club of the New Romantics scene. Whatever shape Major Tom was in, Bowie, as the melancholic Pierrot and master of ceremonies, definitely was at the top of his game here. Fashion, the second famous single of the album, comes along as a stiff, frosty funk. With its strict, almost militant 4/4 beat, the song sometimes leaves it unclear whether Bowie is singing about fashion or about fascism. In this ironic song, fashion becomes a dictate that people have to follow sheepishly. It's a striking observation that gave Bowie a top 5 hit in the UK. This is a really cool track, not only for the early 80s.
Fashion, turn to left, fashion, turn to the right. Fashion.
Opening side 2 of Scary Monsters and Super Creeps. Teenage wildlife, and it is a lot more relaxed. Bowie suddenly surprises us here with a tongue-in-cheek crooning singing style. Musically, the track seems to be a bit of a copy of Heroes, Bowie's famous anthem. The song could be read as a stab at Bowie's young epigones forming the New Romantics and New Wave movement, a refusal to get monopolized by a certain scene, but it could also be interpreted as an older Bowie talking back to his arrogant younger self. There are some great lyrics in this song, but on the whole, for me, this is one of the lesser tracks on Scary Monsters, to be honest. And so is also the next track, Scream Like a Baby, a cold, rather futuristic recording telling a dark story about imprisonment, torture, and madness, again with hints at totalitarian political systems that reappear on the album. But in my book, this is musically not a very memorable cut. The album, for me, picks up again with Kingdom Come. This is, believe it or not, a cover version. The original was by ex-Television frontman Tom Verlaine. So Bowie intentionally covers post-punk here. For fans, this may be old news. I didn't know this was a cover until recently. The song, again about imprisonment and redemption, is built around a repetitive but very catchy guitar phrase. The original is a bit slower and less cheerful. Bowie added gospel background vocals and guitar layers. Both versions are really cool, and this cover seamlessly gets in line with the rest of the material on the album as if it had been written by Bowie. A very enjoyable recording. Next up is Because You Are Young. This song is noteworthy because it features The Who's Pete Townsend on guitar. Unfortunately, he has been mixed so far in the background that you can't really hear what he's doing on this track, which is a shame, really. Other than that, this song, written from the world-weary view of an older narrator about young lovers, is nothing too special, I have to say. It nicely prepares the listeners for the final track, though. It's No Game bookends the album. Its second part is a mellower, more melodic version than part one. Bowie exchanges his yelling for a tender, pleasant crooning style here. This more melodic approach lets the actually really strong tune become more apparent. It doesn't make the lyrics any happier, though. Instead, this soft or tender, matter-of-fact vocal delivery just emphasizes the bleakness of the whole lyrical content.
And it's no game.
Scary Monsters and Super Creeps was a return to commercial success for David Bowie. It went to number 1 in the UK, number 12 in the US Billboard charts, and it went platinum in several countries. Critics also loved this album, and to this day it remains one of Bowie's most essential releases. And personally, I can only agree with that. Scary Monsters is a sonically intriguing album. It hits the right spot or balance between pop appeal and artistic aspirations. On this album, Bowie is one more time confidently in the role of a musical idol and a trendsetter before he would plunge into clean radio pop for his next few albums. If you'd like to hear David Bowie beyond his classic glam rock albums, Scary Monsters and Super Creeps may be a very good point to continue, maybe even before listening to the more avant-garde Berlin trilogy. The PRO had set the arena for a league of new wave acts. Bowie himself now wanted to become a shiny MTV pop star, but that's a story for maybe another video. Thank you for listening, and bye-bye.